We use technology in very different ways. It could generate some forms, it could generate some ideas for projects, but also we are very interested in materials, and a lot of the projects are material based. And we try to use technology as much as we can wherever it's needed. We have great fascination, but we're not fetishists about technology. We can, in all the work, we try to use it where it's needed, where it makes sense. We try to be creative, like those beams I was talking about for this house, and how to deform the three-dimensional square beam, but also using zip ties to connect polycarbonate that was CNC routed to the last layer to be able to fold it. Though, to me, what is interesting is how to work with an idea from conceptually, but also its representation, but also its implementation. And if you take the example of the chairs are based on the idea of understanding technology. And technology, to me, is building an expertise in it. And almost the more you build this expertise, the better you use the technology, and almost the less you use the technology, how to minimize the use of technology or use it in the best way, rather than in this excessive, overwhelming, let me show you what we can do with technology. It could be visible, it could be totally invisible. It doesn't need always to scream, technology or digital technology. It could be very discreet but very effective. Again, to me, that's there is a spectrum. One is the chair, where it is based, everything about this design is based on technology, from its process, conceptual ideas, to its representation, to its implementation. If you take the steel structure for the J house, it is very discreet, it's very useful. This project would have been almost impossible to achieve, or at least it would have to happen in a different way if it wasn't about the technology. But it's not, the design itself doesn't scream technology. It's embedded in the implementation. Even for concrete formwork, we used CNC router to generate all the formwork, just to make it easier, because we are in a context where labor is not always the most qualified, or we don't want to bring people. We want to work locally with people, but we want to make it easy for them. And if technology can facilitate that and make them do work that usually they don't do, or do not know how to do it, great, let's use it, and let's use it as much as we can. It's almost, we're reverting to kind of hands and craft in a certain way with the tools are not the old tools, they are new tools that we're working with. But even fabricators, if we're talking about robots or CNC machines, or they all develop their kind of own way of using these equipments. To take an example, we did a lot of polycarbonate projects, and the first one, it was probably the guy who did it, not only didn't make money, but probably lost money on that job, but he was very excited about trying something new. It sounds very simple, you route the polycarbonate to the last layer, and voila, you have it, and you just fold it, put zip ties, and you have a project. The reality of it is it is a little bit more complicated than this, because once you start routing the polycarbonate, you have all the dust that goes into the polycarbonate, especially the type we use has these very tight cells. But also, to adjust, all these adjustments are very difficult. So we came with kind of crazy ideas. One was to torch the polycarbonate to burn all these, late at night when you start okay, we need to solve this problem, we have a problem here, up to, more serious ways of thinking about it. And once we develop, the way of making something like this happen, then all the projects and most of the polycarbonate projects were developed with this guy. So when I had a project in Berlin with Miyake, I convinced him that making it in Chicago, making the fabrication in Chicago and shipping it is more logical than making the fabrication. It's not that they don't have CNC router machines in Berlin, but to work with this group of people that worked on few projects and were able to develop these techniques. Same thing with the Pavillon de l'Arsenal project. All these projects were developed in Chicago, fabricated in Chicago and shipped to different places. So, those relationships are really important, and it's not just about machines and, kind of generic. They are not as generic as, as one might think they are.